Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan, coming up in the next 30 minutes. India envoy to UN lauds Trump's role in Gaza ceasefire deal, reaffirms two-state solution as path to Israel-Palestine peace. Union Minister Piyush Goyal hopes for India-US trade deal in near future, engages with Germany and Luxembourg businesses on his visit to Berlin. EU vows financial backing for Ukraine, holds off on frozen assets plan. Zelenskyy heads to London for discussions with key allies. And foreign powers to host Sudan Truce meeting in Washington on Friday aim to push country's long-running war towards a permanent ceasefire and peace. India at the United Nations on Thursday called US President Donald Trump's Gaza ceasefire deal a landmark initiative and emphasized that the talks must continue for the agreement to hold. Indian envoy to the UN, Parvathneni Harish, also commended the role of Egypt and Qatar towards achieving the deal. He remained firm in his view that dialogue and diplomacy and the two-state solution are the means to achieve peace in the entire Middle East.
We welcome the signing of the landmark peace agreement. It is India's hope that the positive diplomatic momentum that has been generated would lead to lasting peace in the region. At this juncture, India would also like to place on record its appreciation for the United States and especially President Donald Trump for playing an instrumental role in forging the agreement. Further, India also commends the role of Egypt and Qatar towards achieving this end. India remains firm in the view that dialogue and diplomacy and the two-state solution are the means to achieve peace. India's position is firmly rooted in its consistent stance on the developments in 7th October 2023, as well as the overall Palestinian question. India has clearly condemned terrorism, stressed that there must be an end to destruction, despair, and suffering of civilians, and sought the immediate release of all hostages.
He further stated that over the last 2 years, India has provided relief assistance of nearly 135 metric tons of medicines and supplies to Palestine.
Another central element is economic prospects and viability of a Palestinian state. Aid is essential in the short term for rehabilitation and reconstruction. Palestinian people cannot rebuild their lives without the support of the international community. India has been active on this front. The total support by India to the Palestinian people is to the tune of over $170 million, which includes projects worth $40 million in various stages of implementation. Our commitment manifests in various forms depending upon the needs and priorities of the Palestinian people. We have implemented human-centric projects bilaterally and also partnered with the United Nations and the Palestinian Authority in this regard. Over the last 2 years alone, India has provided relief assistance of nearly 135 metric tons of medicines and supplies. Looking ahead, these initiatives must be coupled with the creation of economic frameworks and mechanisms that are conducive for social development, investment, and employment.
And speaking on the Middle East situation, the envoy said that the humanitarian challenges are an important dimension and it is important to address these on priority.
Indian troops in Andof remain steadfast in executing their mandate even during extreme challenges experienced during the recent conflict, including the supreme sacrifice by Acting Force Commander Brigadier General Amitabh Jha in December 2024. India is the third largest contributor to this mission. As the second largest contributor to UNIFIL, India reiterates the importance of the safety and security of peacekeepers of this mission. At a broader level, peacekeepers serve a very critical function of the UN, and they cannot become casualties of conflicts and escalations. India remains hopeful that the Lebanese armed forces would be equipped to discharge the entire spectrum of its responsibilities once the UNIFIL sunset clause becomes operational towards the end of 2026.
And speaking on India's role in peacekeeping in Yemen, he said that the humanitarian situation in Yemen is an area of concern and must be considered above politics.
The humanitarian situation in Yemen is an area of concern. Humanitarian assistance must be above politics. It must reach all civilians, irrespective of affiliations and power structures. Immediate cessation of hostilities would catalyze these efforts. Safety and security of Indian nationals in Yemen are a priority for us.
All right, shifting focus, India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal, who is on an official visit to Germany from October 23rd to hold important meetings designed to facilitate high-impact interactions with senior government officials, industry leaders and business associations in both countries to further boost the Indo-German relations. On the sidelines of his Berlin visit, the minister spoke to DD India correspondent Sonika Rena on the ongoing India-US trade talks. Take a listen.
So would you like to tell us something about the ongoing US-India trade negotiations?
We are in dialogue with the United States of America. Our teams are engaged. We recently had the Commerce Secretary visit the US and he met with his counterparts. We continue to engage with them and talks are progressing. We hope to work towards a fair and equitable agreement in the near future.
And at the invitation of Malaysia's Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, Prime Minister Modi will virtually attend the 22nd ASEAN-India Summit on 26th October. PM Modi and the ASEAN leaders will jointly review the progress in ASEAN-India relations. They will discuss initiatives for strengthening the comprehensive strategic partnership. Strengthening the relationship with ASEAN is a key pillar of India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific vision. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar will represent India at the 20th East Asia Summit in Kuala Lumpur on 27th October. An East Asia Summit will provide an opportunity to deliberate on the challenges to peace, stability and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. And India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh interacted with soldiers in Jaisalmer, a city in the western state of Rajasthan. During his interaction, Rajnath Singh hailed the courage of armed personnel and said Operation Sindoor reflects India's power to turn pain into strength. The minister also appreciated the teamwork and discipline of the forces stationed in Jaisalmer, calling them a true symbol of national pride. Rajnath Singh said the bravery of the soldiers inspires the entire nation and strengthens India's unity.
जैसलमेर की इस धरती ने ऐसे अनेक पराक्रम देखे हैं। यहाँ की रेत के एक-एक कण हमारे सैनिकों के शौर्य की गवाही देते हैं।
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh released the Defence Procurement Manual 2025 at a function in New Delhi on Thursday, effective from November 1st. The new procurement manual will facilitate the revenue procurement amounting to approximately ₹1 lakh crore by the three services and other establishments under Ministry of Defence. Appreciating the efforts of Ministry of Defence and Headquarters Integrated Defence Staff for the revision of the manual, the Defence Minister expressed confidence that the new manual will simplify the procedures, bring uniformity in functioning and will be helpful in providing goods and services required by the armed forces for operational preparedness. Now, Railway Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw visited the War Room at Rail Bhavan on Thursday to review the railway's preparations for Chhath Puja. He interacted with officials, monitored real-time train operations and assessed crowd management and passenger facilities at key stations. The minister elaborated on plans to run additional special trains, strengthen coordination between zones and deploy more staff to ensure safe, smooth and comfortable travel for passengers during the festive rush.
तो 10,700 जो कि पहले से नोटिफाइड IRCTC के वेबसाइट पे पहले से नोटिफाइड है, जिनमें टिकट रिजर्व करके आप पहले से ले सकते हो और जो सडन सर्ज आती है उसके लिए अबाउट 3,000 ट्रेन्स का प्रोविजन रखा गया है। ओवरऑल 13,000 की तरफ ये नंबर जा रहा है। मे बी इट विल इंक्रीज मोर। इस बार डेस्टिनेशन बहुत बढ़ा दिए, जैसे पिछले साल डेस्टिनेशन बिहार के 7 बड़े शहर थे, इस बार करीब 18 बड़े शहरों को रखा। 18 लोकेशंस को बिहार के 18 लोकेशंस को डेस्टिनेशन रखा गया है।
Now, a new book titled Modi's Mission, authored by renowned lawyer and writer Burgess Desai, will be released on Friday in Mumbai by Maharashtra Governor Acharya Devvrat and Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis. The book traces Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inspiring journey from a humble childhood in Vadnagar to his emergence as the nation's leader.
Author Burgess Desai describes Modi's mission not as a biography but as a story of an idea, the idea of national resurgence and self-reliance. The book explores the formative experiences from Modi's early years that shaped his views on governance, leadership and social transformation. It also reflects on how the Prime Minister, despite facing challenges and criticism, rose as an instrument of national awakening.
It is to explain his personal spiritual journey, the mindset which evolved during extremely hard conditions during his childhood, which still people do not know. How he left home permanently at 17, his sadhana and siddhi during those 2.5 years when he was in the Himalayas and in the northern parts of the country, and all the spiritual experiences he had. And then how he has implemented this mindset, this idea of what motivates him is service. It has been a continuous story of service and sacrifice.
The author examines major policy milestones, including the formalization of India's economy, the abrogation of Article 370, and the government's push for transparent and result-oriented governance. Desai also discusses what he calls the false narratives spread by a section of the intellectual class attempting to discredit Modi's leadership.
The palpably false narratives which have been spun by a section of the intellectual elite, the Western media and some of our left-leaning historians, who obviously cannot assail his impeccable integrity and his administrative acumen and his relentless hard work and all. He is a transformative leader, and one day he will be judged on par. The Mahatma will be remembered for 1947, and when Viksit Bharat happens, Modi will be remembered for 2047.
A Mumbai-based lawyer and a former journalist, Burgess Desai brings his sharp analytical lens to present Modi's mission as an engaging account of the Prime Minister's methodical approach towards strengthening India's civilizational identity and building an efficient welfare state. Shama Mishra's report from Mumbai for DD India.
Now let's take a look at other stories making news today. The final list of candidates for the second phase of Bihar Assembly Elections 2025 has been released after the last date for withdrawal of nominations ended on October 23rd. A total of 122 assembly constituencies across 20 districts are included in this phase. Voting for the second phase will take place on November 11. In two simultaneous rescue operations, Drishti Marine lifesavers saved 42 people after a cruise boat and a dinghy got stranded off Aguada Bay in North Goa amid rough seas and thunderstorms. The rescue teams used rigid inflatable boats and jet skis to reach the vessels trapped among rocks. Despite turbulent waves, all passengers were brought ashore safely with help from Aguada jail and port staff. The operation highlighted the team's courage, quick response and coordination in keeping Goa's waters safe. Now, in Jharkhand's Hazaribagh district, police have busted an opium smuggling network and arrested 6 people during an anti-drug drive ahead of Bihar Assembly elections. Around 2.7 kilograms of illegal drugs, 4 mobile phones and vehicles were seized from the spot. The arrests point to an active interstate drug trafficking network involving links across Jharkhand, Bihar and Punjab. On October 23rd, International Snow Leopard Day was observed, and the global 23 for 23 campaign was actively supported by Project Brahmank of the Border Roads Organization to promote snow leopard protection. PRO personnel engaged in community outreach with forest officials and villagers, encouraging coexistence and habitat preservation. They also participated in group walks, yoga, team runs and a tree plantation drive, highlighting the balance between development and conservation of fragile mountain ecosystems. All right, still to come on this edition of DD India Live. Donald Trump insists he can strike alleged drug traffickers without Congress declaring war. Argentines head to the polls on Sunday in a crucial midterm election. And New Zealand Parliament to debate teen social media ban.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Some more stories. European leaders pledged on Thursday to cover Ukraine's financial needs in 2026 and 27, but stopped short of approving a plan that would draw from frozen Russian assets to do so after Belgium raised objections. EU leaders met in Brussels on Thursday to discuss Ukraine's pressing financial needs for the next 2 years. Many leaders had hoped the talks would clear the way for so-called reparation loan, which would use frozen Russian assets held by the Belgian financial institution Euroclear to fund a loan of 140 billion euros for Ukraine. The EU froze about 200 billion euros of Russian central bank assets after the country launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. In order to use the assets to fund Ukraine, the European Commission, the EU's executive, has floated a complex financial maneuver that involves the EU borrowing matured funds from Euroclear.
European leaders committed to ensure that Ukraine's financial needs will be covered for the next 2 years. We have asked the Commission to put forward options as soon as possible, so that Ukraine has the resources it needs to continue defending itself and fight for a just and lasting peace in 2026 and 2027 if it's necessary.
We agreed on the what, that is the reparations loan, and we have to work on the how we make it possible, what is the best option to move forward.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy heads to London for discussions with key allies. Britain on Friday called for a raft of measures against Russia to strengthen Ukraine's hand ahead of any future peace talks. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's office said he would press a meeting of the coalition of the willing countries that have pledged to strengthen support for Ukraine to take Russian oil and gas off the global market, use frozen Russian assets to support Ukraine, and give Kiev more long-range missiles. Now, representatives of the United States, Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Egypt will meet on Friday in Washington with the sides in Sudan's long-running conflict to push them towards a truce. Last month, the influential foreign powers referred as the Quad jointly called for a humanitarian truce in Sudan, followed by a permanent ceasefire and a transition towards civilian rule. This week's meeting is focused on that plan and pressing the warring parties to implement a 3-month nationwide humanitarian truce. The Quad is acting collectively to apply unified pressure on the parties to stop the fighting and allow aid to reach civilians. The official said members of the grouping would meet with the two sides separately. Sudan's army-aligned government reacted coolly to the Quad's peace plan last month, rejecting the suggestion that both IF and the RSF be excluded from the country's post-war political transition. US President Donald Trump said on Thursday that a report on the United States sending B-1 bombers near Venezuela to increase military pressure was false. Trump also said that his administration plans to brief the US Congress on operations against drug cartels related to Venezuela, but that a declaration of war is not needed.
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead. Okay?
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro issued a warning on Thursday, ordering the country's working class to launch a general insurrectionary strike and take up arms if the United States attempts any intervention in Venezuela. Speaking at an event in Caracas, Maduro declared the workers, peasants and fishermen would serve as the greatest shield the country has against foreign oppression.
Por aquí,
if one day they dare to come here or there, here is the greatest shield the country has, the working class. Not a pin would move, and a general insurrectionary, revolutionary strike by the working class and peasant would be declared in the streets until power was regained to carry out an even more radical revolution. Brothers and sisters, take this as an order. The order is given. If they dare, not a pin will move in this country. They would see the parade of millions of men and women with rifles in the fighting forces of the working class, the peasants, the fishermen, and the neighborhoods throughout the country.
y los barrios.
Venezuela began a nationwide military deployment on Thursday as part of its Coast Independence 200 exercises aimed at defending the country's sovereignty and internal stability amid rising regional tensions. The drills, which span across the coastal states of La Guaira, Miranda, Anzo Atague, Falcon, Nueva Esparta, Carabobo, Sucre and Zulia, were launched under the supervision of Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino Lopez, who also serves as Vice President for Defense and Sovereignty. During the deployment, Padrino warned against alleged covert operations by the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, saying any attempt to destabilize Venezuela would fail. He added that the military exercises are also a response to military threat in the Caribbean region. Now, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum has accused certain U.S. nationals of being involved in a complex fuel smuggling network operating across the border. Responding to a report, Sheinbaum confirmed during a morning press conference that American business figures were implicated in the illegal trade. Investigators have focused on a Houston-based firm, Econ Midstream, which allegedly mislabeled diesel exports to Mexico as lubricants to avoid high import taxes. While the company has not issued a statement, Mexican security officials said it remains under active investigation. Authorities estimate that the smuggling operation may account for nearly one-third of Mexico's diesel market. Both Mexican and U.S. governments are stepping up enforcement measures, pursuing sanctions and legal proceedings against those tied to the fuel trafficking networks.
Yes, there are U.S. business people in the cases under investigation. It couldn't be explained how illegal fuel entered or still enters in smaller quantities without someone on the other side. In fact, the United States also mentioned it and has its own investigations, the Department of Justice itself.
Now, Argentines will head to the polls on Sunday in crucial midterm elections that will decide the future of President Javier Milei's tough economic reforms. Milei's party hopes to gain seats in Congress to push forward labor, tax and pension changes. While inflation has dropped, social costs have sparked mixed reactions. Opposition leader, Governor of Buenos Aires province, closed his campaign with strong criticism of Milei's US-backed bailout and economic policies, accusing the government of turning Argentina into a casino. He vowed to block Milei's austerity agenda in Buenos Aires, calling for more rights and social justice. Now, the vote will fill half the Chamber of Deputies and a third of the Senate, shaping Argentina's political future and testing Milei's grip on power. Moving on, a bill to restrict social media for children under 16 will be introduced in the New Zealand Parliament. Building momentum for Parliament's efforts to prevent young people from being harmed while online, the proposed legislation will require social media platforms to conduct an age verification process similar to Australia's world's first teen social media ban law passed in 2024. A New Zealand parliamentary committee has been looking at the impact of social media harm on young people and the roles that government, business and society should play in addressing those harms. A report is due in early 2026, according to a statement from the committee last week. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon has been raising concerns about harms to mental health from the overuse of social media among young teens, including misinformation, bullying and harmful depictions of body image. Sports now. India registered a commanding 53-run win over New Zealand in a rain-affected game to seal their place in the semi-finals of the ICC Women's ODI World Cup 2025. Openers Pratika Rawal and Smriti Mandhana smashed superb centuries to take India to a commanding total. It was a complete team effort from the women in blue as all the bowlers chipped in with crucial wickets to restrict New Zealand to 271 for 8 in 44 overs while chasing a revised target of 325. Renuka Singh and Kranti Gaur were the leading wicket takers of the match for India, picking up 2 wickets each. Renuka also achieved a major career milestone during the game, completing 100 international wickets. Now, the FBI carried out investigations into schemes involving illegal sports betting and rigged poker games, leading to the arrest of 34 people. NBA Hall of Fame player Chauncey Billups and a guard with the Miami Heat, Terry Rozier, were among the people charged in connection with 2 separate but related federal gambling investigations. The schemes, one of them focused on insider sports betting and another that rigged poker games nationwide, spanned years and involved tens of millions of dollars in illicit gains from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion and gambling. That scheme also involved the Bonanno, Gambino and Genovese organized crime families in New York. While the arrests stemmed from 2 separate indictments, a handful of defendants were charged in both cases. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India Live. But do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.